Week 5. We are on to week 5 of the fantasy football and NFL best ball season. Almost a quarter of the way through the year. Time is flying. Chaos is ensuing. And week 5 is a make or break week for multiple offenses, multiple players we drafted highly or drafted lots of, and some really intriguing spots, in particular for some of the guys that Rob and I drafted, that you sickos drafted. And we're going to cover it all here on a quick little week 5 look ahead for fantasy football and best ball 2023. Let's do it. So, Rob, we signed off yesterday. For anybody that did not get a chance to watch our Monday Night Best Ball show last evening, we covered kind of everything that happened in week 4, of course, aside from the Monday Night Football game, because we record before the Monday Night Football game. Me having lots of Seahawks, a little bit of Daniel Jones, but also kind of two bad defenses. Was a little bit excited for this, maybe a potential bounce back spot for the Giants, who have been obviously putrid outside of one half of football this entire year. Getting excited for that game. We're just hoping, let's get us some points. Let's get us some fantasy goodness. And my God, that was the biggest waste of 3 hours of my life. And I did not finish it all the way to the end, but you get the point. That was abysmal. That felt more like kind of the disappointment of week 1 and some of the bad games that we saw there, as opposed to some of the more fun we've had over the course of the last few weeks. That was terrible. I don't have any takeaways. The Seahawks won. Like, Ken Walker scored. DK caught a touchdown. It's like, hooray. JSN led them in targets, by the way, for a whopping like 4 fantasy points. But, we'll take our wins where we can get them. Game was just horrible. I'm excited to move on to week 5 after that one.
We almost had the most fun play of the season, though. Except he got called down. That Ken Walker touchdown run for like 75 yards.
Oh yeah.
That was a lot of fun. And I was like, come on, just give it to him. Like, it's just too fun to take it off the board. And his ass cheek was down by like that much.
Yep.
But that was fun. Yeah, the Giants are bad. And they keep investing in the offensive line. It's not working. They invested so much in the offensive line, they didn't do anything to help Daniel Jones. Not that he looked good last night either, but when he was able to get like a half second of protection, he looked like shit. And the other times, he literally couldn't do anything. So just a mixed bag of garbage throughout the entire night for the Giants, which I kind of love, but too many primetime games for the Giants. But Eric, we do, as we're going to talk about, I think, get a really fun Thursday night game this week.
This is one of the teams that was in the bad team shootout of the week in week 4. We get another chance at another bad team shootout on Thursday night between these two, and I am excited for this one. I obviously, if you're watching this, probably that I'm heavily invested into Washington and Sam Howell, and that's been a little bit of a roller coaster so far, but generally speaking, it's been fine. And the Bears were a train wreck, of course, until they got Denver to come to town, who everybody just lays the smackdown on, at least on offense. Of course, the Bears found a way to lose 31-28, but Thursday Night Football, I don't think most of America is very excited about this game, but I'm genuinely excited about this game, and I think there's going to be a lot of fantasy points. Like, is it necessarily going to go how we are hoping? I don't know, but I think, I probably not would be the answer to that. Does any Bears game ever go how you're hoping? Does any Ron Rivera game ever go how you're hoping? Probably not, but I think it's not. Knock on wood. I need to knock on wood before I say this after last night, but I don't think we're going to get like last night's game. There's going to be some form of fun, even if it's a little disappointing, like a lot of Thursday night games are. I think this one will be fun for fantasy, and I would want to have players in it heading into this week for sure.
Well, it has 2 of the most drafted wide receivers of 2 of the 3 from that 5th round area that I loved, right? It was McLaurin for most of the summer, DJ Moore, and they're playing each other this coming Thursday night. And I am pretty pumped for it. It's one of those games where it's like, do I want this on the main slate for DFS purposes, or do I want this as an island game just for like something fun to watch on Thursday night? Because you can't have it both ways, right? You can't have all the fun games on the main slate and then complain about the bad games. So
Right.
I'm pretty pumped about it. So I just think it's going to be a fun game. I don't know what I'm rooting for other than fantasy, best ball points, and all that fun stuff.
One thing, I know we're a best ball show, and we're talking mostly about this from the folks who have, kind of drafted best ball teams all summer. Of course, if you're managed leagues or whatever, it's applicable as well. Not so much a sports betting show, but I do like to use our partner site Scores and Odds to kind of use the games as a chronological display on the screen. And I did notice this earlier. Now it's moved up from 42.5 to 44.5, but I still like the over on this game. I think that both of these defenses are not very good. Washington is reasonably good against the run and has a reasonable pass rush. So that's a small concern, but I don't have it offhand, but it was somebody that I saw. I don't know if it was Kyle Dvorak or somebody, but anyway, somebody that we know posted on Twitter or something about the two defense or like the top or bottom 5 defenses in terms of like EPA per play and like explosive plays allowed and like all that kind of stuff. And these two, we all knew the Bears would be there, but Washington has been there as well. And the pass defense has been a leak for them for a little while now. They drafted all those incredible pass rushers, right? For like 5 years. And those guys are good, but they don't have anybody that can cover, really.
Right.
We saw that against A.J. Brown last week. So I like this game. I like this game for everybody, except maybe, we got a really nice Khalil Herbert game last week against Denver. He's the one guy I wouldn't be counting. I mean, I never want to count on Cole Kmet either, but at least I think he's probably got some outs to have a good one. But it's kind of wheels up for everybody else in this game. It's a great week to have these guys, especially as some very notable teams go on by. Which we'll talk about as well. There are teams on bye, having guys on as these bye weeks come through that are just healthy and maybe running into a decent spot, even though they're not the total smashes for the first month, right? It's B-Rob is not A-Chain, right? And Terry McLaurin is not Keenan Allen or whatever. But when you run into this is gonna we haven't had buys yet. These buys coming, it's gonna change everything over the course of the next 2 months. And it's hard to really understand how much it matters and how thin your teams get. Like just how crazy thin they get, especially when, like, say you had a Chargers team. The Chargers have been great, right? You've been banking on the Chargers. If you had them and say A-Chain and whatever, Kyron, and you've been counting on those guys, you don't have the Chargers, and what if you don't get a big A-Chain and Kyron week, right? All of a sudden you lose a lot of points to other teams, and these Bears, Washington, some of these other teams in good spots can make it up really, really fast when the buys hit, because you don't have all your artillery behind you to make it up in a down week.
Yeah, and I also was looking at some of my best ball teams earlier today, and one of my highest scoring teams, I don't remember who the other backs are, but it has Nick Chubb and it also has J.K. Dobbins. Still one of my highest scoring teams. But to your point, I think like Roshan Johnson's on that team or something like that. And so it's the perfect example of like, if this team is still going to try to squeak through, which it needs everything it can to squeak through, but when you're missing those guys, these are the type of weeks and the type of matchups that you need. And I usually don't like the over on Thursday night games, but for everything you said, plus the fact that not only are their defenses bad, but these offenses are prone to turning the ball over. So we're going to get some short fields. Like that's why I would like the over in this game. So I think people look at this game and kind of hold their nose a little bit. And I think it's just, you're sort of indoctrinated. Jesus, I can't talk. I just did so much voiceover. You're prone to thinking that the Bears have a good defense, right? Because they had a good defense for like 30 years of our lives. And you think Washington's defense is pretty good, but buddy, they're not. And it's going to be a high scoring game, I think.
Yep, I think so too. And this is Carlos brings up, sorry, Carlos, we're sad for your Mike Williams teams. Of course, that was a really unfortunate, obviously out for the year injury for Mike Williams. Everybody is feeling that, but this is like the exact point. There are teams doing well with Mike Williams. There are teams doing well with Nick Chubb. There are teams doing well with J.K. Dobbins. I mean, most of my best teams across literally every site have J.K. Dobbins on them. Obviously not because of him. It's just he's high owned in my teams. So, I got Kyron and Puka on those teams. Keenan on those teams. So they've been, carried. these hurt players, whatever, then you have these guys that are then also going to go on by, right? So you have Carlos has a bunch of really good teams that have Mike Williams on them. Now, maybe what if they were a Herbert, Keenan, Mike Williams team, right? It's like, oh shit, man. Now you lost your 5th round quarterback, your 3rd round wide receiver, and your 4th or 5th round wide receiver. And I know that Mike Williams is not coming back, but these things are going to start compounding. And so it feels like, and maybe I'm coping a little bit because I have like the stone average advance rate across all sites. Drafters is going pretty well, but in terms of advance rate across Underdog and DraftKings, it's just totally meh for me so far. But like your teams can make up ground really fast from now through week 13. And it's important to keep that in mind because everybody else is going to, like, I got hit, I believe, really, really early with some really brutal hits to the portfolio. Namely J.K. Dobbins, right? Evan Hull was a last round guy, but he gets knocked out right away. It's like little chinks in the armor early on, but now it's like, okay, now kind of my teams that are okay and alive are fine. They may not be advancing right now, but they're fine. And then I got all this trash at the bottom, all these teams that are already down in 10th, 11th, 12th, and have no chance of coming back. But like it starts to stabilize, and the good drafters, which I believe if you're watching this, Rob and I believe that we are. If you're watching this, you are. If you're in our Discord, which there's a link in the description, you can like start to really extrapolate your edge for these next 2 months, because this is when being a good draft, right? Winning the first 4 weeks is just like, dude, did you draft A-Chain? Did you draft A-Chain and did you draft Keenan Allen? Did you not get the 102 and get Jamar Chase, right? Did you not get the 106 and get Travis Kelce? Like that little stuff is what is really driving everything right now. The rest of the way here as buys hit are when we're really going to start to see, okay, did you construct good teams that can withstand this whole gauntlet of a season and be ready for the playoffs? So,
and this is what we talked about week 1, because it's going to happen every year. People start victory lapping like crazy after week 1. And I remember saying on this show or the Monday night show, let's just wait till the bye week start hitting. Let's see how much victory lapping is happening at that point, because that's when your teams really start to matter to everything you just said. So I'm excited for the bye weeks because I'm excited for people to start getting dunked on.
Yeah, that is definitely true. Speaking of being dunked on, the NFL has this thing about dunking on the London. This game is in London, correct? Bills, Jaguars. We send the Jags over there all the time, and they only play their good games back here, in the States. We do, however, get a fun game because they draw the Bills. So one of maybe the best theoretical London game that we have seen so far between Buffalo and Jacksonville. What I will say is Buffalo's defense continues to look really good. It wasn't totally perfect at the very, obviously the loss to the Jets was not awesome, but that wasn't solely on the defense. Josh Allen played really bad, right? Had the special teamer, Hard Knocks kid, make a big play. A little bit of a fluky game in week 1, but kind of ever since then, the Bills just come out, been largely laying the smackdown, even on the Dolphins, while the Jaguars have been a little disappointing. And so I'm the Jags are talented on offense. It could be fine, but I'm more so just bullish on continuing Bills that I have on my teams here in this one, and just a little so-so on the Jaguars. They just haven't all really put it together, aside from like a half against the Colts, basically. Like even last week, the win against the Falcons was kind of just Falcons incompetence, not Jaguars winning that game. So little bit more excited for the Bills here, but at least we're getting a decent London game. What do you like on this one?
Well, they better get it together this game. And to your point, the Bills are playing better defense, but they lost Tre'Davious White for the season.
Good call.
So the Jaguars better put it together this game, because the Bills are still going to score points. So we're talking about make or break weeks. I know if they go to 2-3, especially in that division, it's not like a theoretical break for the Jaguars, but it almost feels like they're never going to really get it together the way they're supposed to if they don't get it together this week, in a week that I think they have to look good even if they lose, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree. I totally agree with that. It's not, we'll get to the Bengals. It's not the Bengals where it's absolute must win, because like you said, I believe everyone's 2-2 in that division. Even the Colts and the Titans, obviously the Texans also all 2-2. So, the season is certainly not decided today. But I think in terms of not team morale, I'm not getting out the freaking pom-poms or whatever, but you know what I mean? Like in terms of things got to start to come together. It's kind of how I felt about the Ravens before this past week, was like, the season's going to be fine, and I'm not going to ever like turn off the light for them, but we got to start to see some progression here, eventually. And I think we're inching towards that for the Jags. They can still turn it on at some point. That's how the NFL seasons go. But you do want to start to see, like, come out and compete a little bit with Josh Allen, as opposed to, like, they didn't really compete that much with the Chiefs, and they got the shit beat out of them by the Texans. So you kind of got to step it up a little bit here. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I agree. And then we move on to the other team that played in London last week. And I don't have a lot of Bijan bags in best ball. I was grabbing some guys around him, and this is the week that it's going to hurt me. I think Bijan is going to go. I know the Texans have been playing better, but I think that after that game in London last week, they should have been in that game more than they were. And I think Arthur Smith is probably not going to fully unleash Bijan to like 100% workload or anything. They're not going to get rid of the Algier stuff. But I think that you might see a little bit more Bijan this week, like maybe like a 65%, 60% share for him, and kind of flip Algier just a little bit. I didn't look at the numbers last week, but I think you're gonna get that quintessential Bijan game where you get the highlights of his rookie year. You're going to see a lot against this Texas team.
Yeah, the Texans also lost another offensive lineman. I believe that's 6. So the starting
Crazy.
5 and a backup, Kendrick Green, I believe, one of their guards, got hurt today in practice, or they got diagnosed today or whatever, tore his meniscus, I think. So just, the Texans kind of keep CJ Stroud, and the Texans keep pulling that rabbit out of the hat, but like, it's not going to happen every single week. And the Falcons do have not a awesome defense, but I kind of say this every week, probably every show, but it's because it's not just even a belief. I think it's pretty much factual, is that they have a really talented roster, and the defense is actually better than you think that it is in terms of all of their talent. And so, eventually things are not going to go perfect for the Texans. Although, I wouldn't be like, I'm not like upset about having CJ Stroud and Nico Collins and all that. But as you said, I think the story here is more so, on the Falcons side. If you have Bijan, this is a great week to have Bijan on your teams. And B, I don't think that this is like make or break necessarily for Desmond Ridder and Drake London and Kyle Pitts, but we're getting close. There has to be something better, right? Mm-hmm. Like this, Desmond Ridder doesn't have to set the world on fire and become kind of CJ Stroud or whatever on the other side, but we gotta play better. And if you have Ridder, like I drafted Ridder, if you have this guy, as your QB2, QB3, whatever on best ball teams, you would like for him to hang on to the job, of course. Even if he's not scoring points, you still would like to have that additional out to a quarterback score. And I think these are the kinds of games he just has to play better to give a little bit of stability. These are the games where Marcus Mariota did not play better. They won in spite of him. And you can't have that with Ridder, because they will eventually go away from him, because they're not going to fall out of this division race. And so just want to see some more from Ridder, obviously Pitts, London. But I think Bijan, the other last thing about this with Bijan, and technically I guess Dameon Pierce on the other side, is that running back is so ungodly bad this week, like at the high end. There is Bijan and CMC, Eckler, on bye, even if he was going to be back, is on bye. And then CMC and Pollard play each other. Let me scroll down to, I think it's Monday night or Sunday night. Sunday night,
right? Yeah.
They play each other, so not on the DFS main slate, but like both awesome defenses. So those two guys can do well in any game, right? But it's like, in terms of nuclear ceilings, this is probably not the spot for those two guys. And so like you start running out of running backs here, you know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of our boy Kyron is in a pretty tough matchup with the Eagles, and like you just, between injuries, buys, in a couple bad matchups, running back's really thin. So, either if you have Bijan, he could be someone that helps separate you this week, or if you have, zero running back builds, you might be enjoying those this week, because I'm not sure there's going to be a lot of running back scoring.
Well, speaking of bad running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs is playing in the next game against the Carolina Panthers. So if you want to continue on that path of bad running backs, Look, he's just, I don't think he's going to be what we want him to be this year, no matter what. You're going to need the David Montgomery like season long injury to even get close to it. And I think if we read the tea leaves before the season, we kind of would have known that. I kind of played it that way, where I was playing, I was playing Gibbs on DraftKings, but I wasn't playing him on Underdog just because I was hoping for some PPR stuff.
Yep.
But I think it's just, I don't know. And is this like even a great spot for him? It feels like another Montgomery spot, right?
I think so. That's what I was going to bring up first. I'm talking about all the running backs kind of being in bad spots. And I think this is David Montgomery is one of the few bright spots in terms of running backs for the week. Just to rehash, I totally agree with you with Gibbs. And I think it's one of those things where it was really just a price thing, a site-based thing, as you mentioned, and an archetype thing, which kind of all those things are a little bit tied together. Where, look, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is really good. I think he's going to be good. I think when when he's getting the ball, he looks explosive. I think he's going to have a long career as a talented NFL back. But the problem is we got a little bit out over our skis because of how high the Lions took him. And I don't mean we as in you or anybody watching. I mean, we as an entire market, as the fantasy football market, plopping him into the late third round because of the archetype based thing. He is and was always going to be kind of, not gadget is not the right word, right? But maybe souped up DeAndre Swift in how they use DeAndre Swift. Get a little more, maybe more carries and stuff in between the tackles because they hated running Swift so much. Yeah. But generally speaking, his upside is going to be in some explosive runs and pass catching. And so there's going to be a lot of bad weeks when that's your outcome, right? Because you get what happened last week. If they're playing from ahead, you get 30 David Montgomery carries because they're not going to do that to Jahmyr Gibbs. That's not his role. That's not what he does best. They don't give a shit about David Montgomery, dude. Load him. That's what he's there for, is to put him on. Come here for 2 years, buddy. We're going to feed you a lot of carries and your career is probably going to be over, but whatever. You're going to make money while you're here. And so, it just is what it is. He has outs, like you said, with a David Montgomery injury, but I think that's mostly about it. Other thing, 2 things on this game. Panthers mentioned today that they want to trade for an elite level wide receiver 1, which is fucking hilarious. No shit. Why? What did you think? Who was someone in the building not thinking that they needed a wide receiver 1? I thought that this was a given. Your wide receivers are Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, and Terrace Marshall. I thought that everybody knew that you guys needed a wide receiver 1. And why are you going to trade for one? You're 0-4. The Panthers are a bizarre team. Maybe Bryce Young will get better, but I'm not sure that he's the answer right now. Certainly not with the weapons that they have. Spending the money on Miles Sanders and all this. They're a mess. I don't see it getting better for them. So to all that point, Demont is the guy in this one.
Yeah, Demont's definitely the guy. Oh, what about Jameson Williams, by the way?
Yep, that's the other thing.
How much is he going to play? How excited are you, even if he doesn't play him a lot this week, that his suspension got lifted to only 4 games? I know you were slamming him in drafts at least early in the season. Mm-hmm. I was a bit, and then I got scared off. And as I thought about it more, clearly wasn't taking him on drafters too right. much, if at all. But now it's shit. Maybe that was a mistake in the sense that, but how would we have known that they were going to reduce and change these rules too? Right? It's very tough.
I was hammering him before the suspension. I drafted him sparingly after the suspension, but as you said, basically, I don't even know if I drafted him on drafters, maybe an auto pick here or there or something. But as you said, I'm totally fine with that process. I have no idea how we would know that the NFL was going to change their rules and retroactively go back and unsuspend guys and whatever. It just is a funny part of the game. But I am excited about those teams. I didn't buy the dip as much as maybe I should have, but it's also because we are playing the portfolio game, and I didn't want to have 60% Jameson Williams, and he misses the first 6 weeks, and who knows? We still don't know exactly what his role is going to be because obviously we don't exactly know how much they love Jameson Williams. There's been a little bit of negative sentiment, but I'm very excited for my Jameson Williams teams. And as you know, Jonathan is saying here, I think everyone should be excited for Jameson Williams because regardless of like kind of how much he plays and stuff, it feels very Marvin Mimsy to me, where he may not even play a ton right away, but the team needs his skill set, like in the worst way. They don't have field stretchers. They don't have anybody that can make big plays in the passing game or at all, honestly. David Montgomery is a grinder. I love Amon-Ra and Laporta, but they're like intermediate, short to intermediate guys. They need Jameson Williams' skill set. So it's all lined up pretty well. I'm really excited to watch him play. We'll see how I think it'll be a gradual thing, but especially since I'm sure they weren't planning on playing him. They just found out that the suspension got cut back too. So we'll see, but I'm excited.
I was hoping he was going to be cheaper on DK. He's 4K. I was hoping he was going to be like 3,200 or something like that.
Now I got to play fucking min price Wan'Dale Robinson instead of JMO and get my 4 catches for 36 yards or whatever that I'm going to get. Yeah, exactly. Next game up, Titans Colts. Talked about some make or break spots. Last week wasn't necessarily a make or break spot for the Titans, but for Derrick Henry drafters, it was probably a little bit of a make or break where he had not looked like Derrick Henry, and I still don't really think he looks like Derrick Henry, but he had not looked like Derrick Henry. He had not produced from a fantasy sense like Derrick Henry up until last week, and does so in a pretty good game. Throws a touchdown. Very strange, but throws a touchdown, runs for a touchdown, has a pretty good game for fantasy. While not a super tough matchup, I actually think this is a smidge tougher matchup for him here against Indy. They're not terrible against the run. I know they gave up a decent game to Kyron, but a little bit tougher spot here. I think if you have, here's a bounce back guy that I think is also a little bit of make or break time. It's DeAndre Hopkins in this one. I think all your Colts, you're probably pretty happy with, right? AR, you're definitely happy with. If you have Zach Moss, you're happy. Michael Pittman's been totally fine. Josh Downs, fine. Whatever. I guess Alec Pierce has been useless, but pretty much everybody else, on the Titans, like it's time. The passing game, like it's time. Like this is the spot. This is the spot that everybody torches through the air. We don't know if Burks will be back, and so it's like, if Nuke and Chig are not going to do it this week, like when are they actually? Like I don't know when they're going to do it. So this week's a pretty big one for those guys, I think.
I just was looking at the Titans schedule because I thought for some reason they had like one of the worst schedules in the league, and it's not too terrible. So I must have been thinking about somebody else. Yeah, they got to show you something offensively more so than they've done all year. The Cincinnati game was fine. Derrick Henry throwing touchdown passes. Maybe that's the answer because fucking Ryan Tannehill's not doing it.
Well, it's over. It's over. And I drafted some Tanny too. I know you weren't, but I drafted some Tanny too because that is the problem with the late round quarterback strategy is you end up with teams with all these losers on Ritter and Tannehill and all these guys. But
and fade Baker Mayfield, which was the actual right play.
For the one you should have, the only one that you should have drafted. But too much. Shout out. That's why I'm excited for Sam Howell. As you could. Why am I so excited for Thursday Night Football? It's because Howell's got to save all these Ritter, Tannehill, crappy teams that I got there. I am hoping Burks comes back though. It doesn't feel very good. Like man, I don't. Is it ever going to happen for Treylon Burks? I don't know. It's a knee, but I don't know what's going on.
What's the deal with JT in that game? Is he supposedly coming back? That's the other big thing.
He's practicing tomorrow. So we're recording this on a Tuesday. If you're listening to the audio or watching it back, we're supposed to practice on Wednesday. What does that mean? It could not possibly be more murky. Like all the reporting and everything. It's like, okay, he's totally healthy. He's coming back to practice, and they haven't ruled out that he's playing this week. On the other side, he still hates the Colts. He still doesn't want to play for them, and he still wants to be traded. It's like, those two things could not be more polar, like opposing each other, opposing ideologies. So like, how does any of this make any sense? He hates them. He wants to be traded, but he's going to go out there on Sunday and play and they're going to risk him getting hurt. Maybe. And I have some good JT teams actually, but none of it makes any sense. I do hope he plays, but your guess is as good as mine.
Something to monitor coming up. And then we have this fun game where I just vomited because I'm probably going to have to play a $5,800 Daniel Jones in DFS this week against the Dolphins.
I knew we were going to get to that one.
Oh,
I'm
my
looking for
God.
anything else. I'm looking for anything else because so Miami, this is the stoppable force meeting the movable object right here, in that the Dolphins defense is terrible and gives up points to everyone. And we know that they're going to score. That's not an issue. The Giants defense is also not anything special, even if we were worried about the Dolphins offense. The problem is, are the Giants in Bengals? I'm trying to think of other, Saints, whatever. Are they in that territory where it's like the matchup doesn't matter? Like it doesn't. So for anybody that's playing college football, that plays college football DFS, the Iowa Hawkeyes, Iowa football is constantly on these college football slates. And they're like really insanely cheap across the board. And people will talk themselves into them in good matchups. But it's like they are truly so bad on offense that nothing matters. Like they're playing a Purdue team this week who gives up 1 million points. I'm feeling like that about the Giants. And it's definitely some bias from last night, but also this is 3 out of 4, 3.5 out of 4 games. They've had one good half when they fell down by 1 million against the Cardinals. Like, I guess this would talk about make or break. Yeah. They don't need to win this game, but they sure as hell got to play better. They got to score some points, and we can't have Daniel Jones getting sacked 11 or 12 times or whatever it was.
Yeah, I know I'm going to play Daniel Jones this week because they're going to have to put up some offensive production, but to your point, this is the make or break week for the Giants offense for sure. The upside for Daniel Jones rushing, though, is just there. But my concern from a best ball perspective is if they don't do well this game, like, again, to your point, they don't have to win. They're playing the freaking Dolphins in Miami. But they need to look like something. And if they don't look like something, they just paid Daniel Jones all this money, but are they going to end up sitting him late in the year to protect him because of that? Like, I don't know.
Look at this. If it doesn't go well here, like imagine if they didn't make that comeback against the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Here's the schedule. Dolphins this week, at the Dolphins this week, at the Bills next week. That ain't going to go well. By the way, they sacked Sam Howell 9 times. Then you get Sam Howell, who is theoretically a winnable game because the Commanders are not that good. But guess what the Commanders' strength is on defense?
Yep.
Pass rush.
Yep.
The pass rush. Jets. How are they going to score on the Jets? I'm not saying the Jets and Zach Wilson are going to light them up, but how are they going to score on the Jets? Okay, Raiders. Here we go. Okay, we've made it to week 9, and we got our second winnable game against the Raiders. Cowboys, we saw that song and dance already. Back to the Commanders. Patriots, suck on offense, but good defense. I know Matthew Judon went down this week.
Gonzalez.
Which is, yeah. So maybe that one's like possibly winnable. Saints, Packers, okay. But by that time, if we get to those Patriots, Packers, Saints games and we got one win, does it matter? Like, are we going to trot out Daniel Jones and Saquon and those guys? Like, I don't know, man. I don't
And then
know.
Eagles twice and Aaron Donald to round out the last 3 games.
Right. We're hoping to get to week 17, and it's like, how's Daniel Jones going to survive this gauntlet behind that offensive line? So I'm worried. I'm worried about.
No
Daniel
wonder
Jones.
they paid him $40 million a year. They were like, "You're gonna get massacred."
That's what
for the whole season.
His agent went to practice and saw the offensive line and was like, "Guys, if you want him to stick around, otherwise I'm going to leak how bad your offensive line is. You're never going to get a quarterback to come in here. So, and you're going to lose a lot of games. And none of those rookies, all the rookies are going to pull the Eli Manning or whatever, where he refused to play for the Chargers. But the
Waddle game this week, right?
I mean, you tell me when a Waddle game is going to happen. I sure can't figure it out. It feels like Mike McDaniel is a squeaky wheel. I know it's not squeaky wheel. He didn't complain or anything like that, but we just haven't had a real big Waddle game yet. Tons of Tyreek and the running backs, but feels like one of those to me. Feels like Tyreek, go take it. Tyreek, you can get your 6 for 100. I'll take it from there. Type of a game.
Daniel Jones with Wandale or Darren Waller with a Waddle bring back.
The
I
DFS
lose all
slate
the
is going to
money.
be so brutal because you have to click some really bad. We'll get to Johnny's in the chat talking about building Zach Wilson teams, and we'll get there. It's not crazy, which tells you everything you need to know about this week 5 slate of games. Speaking of everything you need to know about this week 5 slate of games, there's nothing you need to know about New Orleans Saints and New England Patriots.
The Spider-Man meme game.
Just if Derek Carr is not healthy like he was last week, I can't imagine that there's a useful fantasy performance on either side of this game. Ramondre is in a timeshare with Zeke, and they can't run or score anyway. None of the wide receivers are explosive enough, and the Saints have a decent defense. And I know the Patriots are banged up, but like if Derek Carr can't throw,
so Derek Carr.
yeah, if Derek Carr can't throw and they're just going to check it down all the time, like, I'm feeling pretty bummed about Olave because Olave was looking not like amazing, but we talked about the elite quarterbacks and like, okay, who were the guys you had to sacrifice if you wanted to get the elite quarterbacks? And like Olave was one of the like somewhat bright spots, not like smashing, but he had a good start. He was off to a good start. And now it's like, oh God, this looks terrible because Derek Carr is going to tough it out through this injury. I don't know. I don't have much on this game.
Yeah, there's not much to say about that game at all, to be honest. Kamara, maybe.
Yeah. You should be excited about Kamara given his role, but like we said, he had to get 14 targets to score 20 fantasy points. Like he had to get 14 targets to get 33 receiving yards. Like we talked about it last night, but you can't count on that. Like that's not going to happen here in this Patriots.
I don't even want the defenses. The defenses are going to be gross in this game.
No, it's going to be runs and checkdowns. The game's going to be over in an hour and a half or something.
Maybe I will go then if I can get out of there and catch the second half of the other 1:00 games.
Yeah, I like the under 40.5. There we go. Another doozy of a game. Ravens go to Pittsburgh to play the Steelers. Kind of a tale of two different teams. Not that the Ravens are like totally excelling, but a nice, reasonable bounce back last week, in particular for Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, probably the two guys that everybody here needed the most if you were drafting Ravens stacks or anything like that. Like I certainly was. And we needed that one last week. 2 touchdowns to Mark Andrews and Lamar running like a madman again. On the flip side, you have the Steelers. I know Pickett's going to try to play, but now we're talking about Kenny Pickett on one leg against a pretty decent defense. No Deontay Johnson still. Pat Freiermuth pulled his hammy. It was mentioned he was doubtful to play already, which assuredly means he's not playing if they're basically saying it on Tuesday. It's bad. It's bad for the Steelers. I know they're 2-2, but it's bad for the Steelers right now. And you can see what the market thinks about this game. An even lower total than the Patriots Saints game at 38.5. So tough times for the Steelers, but I am looking up. I'm feeling good about like Lamar Andrews or whatever.
Did you make money on the Ravens last week? Because the one bet that I made sure I got in for parlays was Ravens money line, like early in the week, because they were dogs to Cleveland, who Deshaun Watson was like questionable all week. And I'm just watching the line and I'm just like, I'm just going to bet the Ravens straight up with some of these other bigger spreads and just, print money. And that's exactly what I did. I'm upset I didn't get the Ravens at the 2.5 open line on this one. That seems like it's good money there. So I think the problem for best ball for DFS in this one is the Ravens are just going to control this game. You might see a lot of Gus Edwards second half type stuff.
Like last week.
It might be the same type of game, and the Ravens just aren't getting pushed yet. So I think you could still get there with Lamar, but I think you're looking for it like immediately. Like if you're not seeing Lamar score right away, if you're seeing if the Ravens opening drive ends up being a Gus Edwards or Justice Hill or whoever, or Latavius Murray rushing touchdown, I think Lamar teams are going to be dead immediately at that point because they're just going to like lay on top of the Steelers, and that's going to be the game.
Right. That's the thing that happened last week was you got a rushing touchdown and 2 passing touchdowns. They scored 24 points, I believe, last week. And Lamar accounted for all of them, including rushing. So you get there, right? They only threw 19 passes last week. Now they didn't run a lot of plays actually, so it wasn't just that they didn't throw a lot, but they were ahead and they were not being pushed by DTR at all. And if it's Mitch Trubisky, which I'm still kind of guessing it'll be Mitch Trubisky, I just can't imagine running your franchise quarterback out there. They're 2-2. They're not 0-4. Like if you lose this one, you're probably expected to lose this one, even if Pickett plays. I can't imagine he plays, but we shall see. That's why we play the games. But I think, like you said, Ravens can get there, but it's got to be a little bit more efficiency than volume. It can be volume related when they play some of the more high powered offenses.
God, that under moved a ton, huh? 3 points on the under already moved on that.
On where were we? Oh,
the Ravens Steelers
41.5. Yeah. The Ravens offense isn't exactly blowing the doors off anybody. Right. And then you put Trubisky in there and no Deontay Johnson. It's a brutal offensive environment. And speaking of that, lots of these, we're moving a lot quicker than we have most of these weeks because we don't have any fun games to talk about this week. But the next one, Bengals Cardinals, but this is definitely kind of show title of make or break weeks. Talked about this a lot last night. This is, to me, the biggest maker, more than the Giants, because the Giants didn't have Super Bowl expectations, right? Like, I know they made the playoffs last year. I know it was a little bit of but they were never really. It was a crazy, awesome year for them. If you're a fan of the Giants, it wasn't really a serious contender. And I don't think anybody thought they were this year. They're building something with Brian Daboll there. Now it's not somebody, accidentally ran into the house with a pickup truck or something over the offseason and they got to rebuild it after this year, but they're in the midst of a building process. Whereas the Bengals are in the Super Bowl window. Right. They may not have T. Higgins forever. You just paid Joe Burrow, so it's going to be a lot harder to build a good team around him. You're going to have to pay Jamar Chase. Things are going to get tougher for the Bengals. And if they can't pull this one out, they're 3-point road favorites against the Cardinals. And from a best ball and fantasy football perspective, if they cannot score some fucking points against the Cardinals, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know how it turns around. I know Joe Burrow will eventually get healthier, but like it may be too little too late by then. If they're not physically capable of scoring points this week. I know T is hurt, trying to push the play apparently with some broken ribs. That tells you about everything you need to know about how things are going out there in Cincinnati. I think the guy's got broken ribs and he's trying to play. That's it. This is it. This is make or break. This is the definition of it. And if it doesn't go well here, the bags on the Bengals are going to feel even heavier than they already do.
Yeah, well, we're finding every single spot that I'm going to go broke this week. So we're going to have, I'm going to have some sort of single entry Daniel Jones team, maybe the early only, and then maybe in the afternoon only, or maybe the double spy. I'll do the Joe Burrow doubles. I see Johnny in the chat asking about Tyler Boyd, who I like as a cheap secondary stack for Joe Burrow this week. We see this line movement a ton. I'm probably going to have a Joe Burrow double team. It's probably just going to happen. It just makes sense in terms of everything you just said. And I'm probably going to even bet on the Bengals now that the spread's only 3 points. And that might even move down more. I might see if I can get it at 2.5 in a day or two. I'm going to go broke this Sunday.
At least you know that it's happening. Usually when we're gambling, we think like, okay, even when we lost, right? You lose in the main slate of DFS, you're going to get it back in Showdown or the afternoon slate or betting on Sunday Night Football, right? You have a terrible regular season in the best ball streets. We're going to get it back in the playoff best ball contest, right? We're going to get it back. At least going in. Like, no, I should probably just wipe my ass with this money, but I'm gonna go for it.
$500 away.
Yeah, exactly. Could donate this to charity, or whatever. But I am not as hopeful for the Bengals as you. I do think it just takes blind faith, which is totally reasonable. I think they have definitely earned some form of respect over the course of the last 3 years, basically, that they can figure it out if everything's, everybody's at full strength. The problem is that is ultimately the problem. The offensive line's not good enough if Joe Burrow can't move. And if Joe Burrow, can't plant on his foot and really let it rip down the field, and if the defense is not worried about him letting it rip down the field, there's just this crazy cascading, this ripple effect if Joe Burrow's not ready to roll. And so that's it. If you have blind faith that eventually this is the week, and it might be. And if you got a tinfoil hat on like Rob does, thinking the NFL is not going to let the Bengals go to 1-4, then that also
they're not going to let them go to 1-4. They just the NFL can't have it yet. They can't not be a playoff contender at least. The other question I had in the chat was, are we going to see you October 20th in Plymouth, Mass? And I would say there's probably a 0% chance that we're going to get Eric to Plymouth, Massachusetts at the end of October this year.
What is the 20th? A, you're correct. There's a 0% chance. But B, I guess I should have waited till I know what it is. But what is on the 20th?
We have a brewery up here that is throwing a gigantic party for our 100th episode for Hometown Ghost Stories.
Oh, that's awesome.
Big celebration. So I don't think you'll see Eric, but I'm not going to say a name, but there's a chance you might see another well-known best ball influencer at the event. Not a guarantee, but you might.
Best ball and ghosts, the perfect marriage, as we all.
Yeah, it works out so well. The crossover is huge.
Yeah, we're definitely sending each other lots of business. The best ball bros are listening to ghost stories, and the ghost people are definitely subscribing for best ball tools.
Yep. Perfect marriage.
Yeah. Speaking of perfect marriage, two teams that we would have thought would be going in totally stone opposite directions that are somewhat going in the same direction. The Eagles and the Rams, where Cooper Kupp may be coming back. I talked about the JT awkwardness of the reporting. It's the same thing for Cooper Kupp. I should have pulled up the tweet, but it was a bulleted list by one of the reporters or something that said something along the lines of Cooper Kupp is only somewhere they want him to be 80 to 90% before he plays in a game, which feels weird. No one ever actually says that quiet part out loud. Usually they say we want him to be 100%, but then they said a couple other things his injury wasn't as bad as we thought. He's going to practice this week. A couple other things. And they were all contradictory. It was he's not fully healthy, but he's going to practice. He needs to do this, but we're still hopeful he's going to play. It's I don't understand anything after I just read that. So is he hurt? Is he 70%? What are you talking about? He can't play.
Better than you thought. He's been out for 4 weeks and it was hurt longer.
He practiced 3 times in training camp and he hasn't played football the rest of the time. What do you mean? Did you think his leg needed to be amputated? Better than you thought. It was all so confusing. So I have absolutely no idea what's going on with Cooper Kupp. We will see if he plays. If you want to get kind of a somewhat of a deeper breakdown on what we think Cooper Kupp means to the Rams, we did talk a little bit about it last night. Ultimately, if you have Puka on best ball teams, you're fine. He's totally fine. And I believe if you have Tutu on your teams, you're totally fine. Of course, this does not impact Kyren. Frankly, Kupp is good for Kyren. You want the offense to get better for Kyren. Van Jefferson hasn't done anything yet. Probably a big old coffin for Van Jefferson when Cooper Kupp comes back. But I mean, the expectations should be held in check for Puka in particular with Kupp back. I think he'll be fine, but I don't think you're going to be getting a bunch of 18 target games when Cooper Kupp is back. In particular, in this matchup, the Eagles defense can be had through the air, as we saw last week with Washington, and as we saw Mac Jones in comeback mode, right? We've seen them. The Cousins did it to them. They've struggled against the pass. They do still have a good pass rush, which that's really ultimately what has me worried against the Rams, because Stafford is hobbled. He was really limping around in the second half of the game on Sunday, and they have a bad offensive line, which is what lost them the game against the Bengals. If you remember, their left tackle went down, and it looked like Daniel Jones last night. Every time Stafford dropped back, he was just getting crushed. And so if he can't move and they can't protect against that pass rush, I have some pretty big concerns about the Rams this week.
I think all this negativity that I've had for my DFS teams this week, here's the one that's going to save me and make me a min cash. It's going to be the Jalen Hurts, Devonta Smith, because I've been doing the AJ Brown thing the 2 weeks that I've been hitting the Eagles wide receivers right. So I think this is going to be the Devonta Smith week. So I think a Jalen Hurts, Devonta Smith. I'll figure out my Rams bring back. I don't know who it'll be at this particular moment. Might even be Higbee. Higbee kind of feels like the bring back, to be honest, on this particular game. And we min cash and we only lose a third of what we put in instead of all of it. So
Exactly.
there it is.
We do have to mention, went to the store earlier and bought a carton of milk, and Dallas Goedert was on the side of it. Is he ever gonna, you're apparently the Eagles whisperer. You've hit the big AJ Brown weeks and the big Jalen Hurts weeks. What the heck is going on with Dallas Goedert? I mean, we all can look at the usage and it's bad. I mean, he's playing, he's out there. It's kind of like Tyler Higbee, but he's morphed into the Tyler Higbees of the world who are out there running routes and blocking. They're just not involved in the offense. I know he had like 6 targets 2 weeks ago, but it was like, it was like he's kind of turned into Zach Ertz, but without the volume, which is like absolutely fucking useless for fantasy. Like he's not getting a bunch of downfield targets. He's not getting volume of targets. Is it gonna pop for him? Is it just variance? How do you feel about Dallas Goedert? Because I know you were kind of heavy on the Eagles.
Well, I think you got to be worried about for sure. And I wasn't as big on Dallas Goedert, but like he's still DFS wise, he's 4,200 this week. So he's still like in an unplayable spot because it's almost like you want to go up if you're going to play a higher price tight end because then you're looking at like, let's just see real quick.
Andrews, Waller, Hawkinson, they're all not that much more expensive than that.
Yeah. It's just, he's in no man's land for the tight end position. He's going to have a few games here where he scores a touchdown or whatever, but you're not loving your best ball shares of Dallas Goedert right now. It's not comfortable. He's going to be one of those guys where you might luck out because the advance rate for tight ends, I don't think is going to be like all on one person. I think it's going to be just like kind of spread across the board.
Somebody has to do something for one of them to separate,
Yeah, so there's no separation, so you still might sneak some Dallas Goedert teams through, and then you hope he does stuff in the playoffs. But other than a few outlier games here and there, I don't think you're going to get much from him. You're not going to get the value you paid for him in drafts, that's for sure.
Yep, because I totally agree. Oh, go ahead. I don't know if that's me that froze or Rob. I'm just going to talk until that happens. Johnny or somebody in the chat, let me know if it's me that froze or if it's Rob. I do want to hit Luke's question here. 1 second, once I find it. Luke Mastronardi, hopefully I said that correctly. 14 man. Oh my gosh, this is an insane. You have all of these guys and you're trying to figure out who to start at flex, or what is ultimately the question here? Let me know in the chat and we can get that straightened out for you. Let's start moving on to these final couple of games where we got a real doozy. Jets, Broncos, and this is where we got Rob back. Maybe. Yes, we got Rob back. I tried to pull a question from Luke in the chat, and he just put a bunch of player names and said any suggestions. So I failed miserably to cover the dead air time.
I don't even know what it means. 14 man, and then he just throws a bunch of names.
Right. And then says at flex. And I'm like, those are all different positions. Yes, I'm not sure, but I'm happy to answer your question, Luke. I spam lots of messages sometimes too. Yeah, if I have to pick one of those, I'm going to pick the quarterback. Play the quarterback. We're on from. I do think Eagles Rams. I'm fascinated to watch the Rams. Well, of course, if Cooper Kupp is back, but even if Cooper Kupp is not back, I'm fascinated to watch the Rams most weeks against the good teams because like they showed up and fought the 49ers, which is really impressive, I think. And so like if they can come out and fight the Eagles, it like gives you a lot of hope. Like you don't want this early season if you have Kyron, if you have Puka, Tutu, whatever, and you have Cup coming back. You don't want this to be like but they were, hanging in there with some bad teams. You want them to be able to fight and be staying in like the wild card race till later in the season. And I'm not expecting them to win, of course not, against the Eagles, but like you don't want to see them go back into their shell and it's like, oh shit, they just lost 35-3, so now that they can't compete with the good teams type of a thing. And who cannot compete with the good teams? The Denver Broncos. Thank God we got another Denver Broncos on an afternoon slate where there's no other games to watch. Okay, we at least got Eagle. Look at this afternoon slate. Jesus Christ. Somebody at the NFL, please. Bengals Cardinals. Nobody wants to watch that except Rob because he wants to watch himself lose money. Eagles Rams. Okay, I'll watch that one. Jets Broncos. Don't want to watch that one. Chiefs Vikings. Just make it the 2 games on the afternoon. Send the other 2 guys, the other teams to London or something like that. The other 2 games. Nobody wants to watch Jets Broncos. But I do think obviously everybody's aware that the Broncos defense is absolutely horrible. And you combine that with the fact that on primetime, Zach Wilson had a big game, relatively speaking, for him in a tough spot against a decent Chiefs defense. Finally played pretty well, which we discussed at length last night. And if you have Brees, if you have Garrett Wilson, if you have Conklin or Lazard or whatever, even Dalvin, maybe not Dalvin, but if you have any of these guys, you're feeling about as hopeful as you felt since the moment that Aaron Rodgers snapped his Achilles, a couple snaps into week 1. This is the time you're feeling the best. And I am hopeful. I have lots of Brees, lots of Garrett Wilson. That's about it though. But I'm feeling
some
pretty
too.
I'm feeling pretty hopeful for the Jets. And so this is not what I would call a make or break, but also they need to win. They are 1-3. They can't come out and lay an egg against the Broncos here. And so I think you've mentioned DFS a couple of times. I do like Zach Wilson, Garrett Wilson here in this spot. How can you not? But I do feel like the training wheels got to come off Brees at some point. And I'm not saying he's going to play every snap. Most running backs don't, right? Austin Eckler plays like 60% of the snaps. But we got to stop with the Michael Carter, and we got to stop every time Brees gets a carry, he comes out and Dalvin comes in the next play. Like we got to give him, he needs to get to like the 60% of the work or something here. And I think it's make or break time for the Jets as a team in this matchup. And so I think that means we're going to get more Brees here in this game. And of course they loaded up Garrett Wilson with targets. So I'm very confident in him moving forward too.
Yeah, this feels like the underdog to bet the money line on this week if we're going to go the betting route.
How are they dogs? And what am I missing?
It's because it's the 3-point thing for the home field advantage. They're just saying they're the same team. So if they were in New York, the Jets would be getting 3. Would be giving 3 as well.
I disagree with that. I disagree with that market assessment that these 2 teams are the same. Trust me, I get Zach Wilson, and it's certainly possible I'm overreacting to the fact that they played well against the Chiefs. I will own that. But the Jets roster is awesome, like legit, really good. And the Broncos roster is terrible, and they are terrible, and they should probably be 0-4. And not probably, they should be 0-4. They just happened to sneak one out against the Bears. So I think it's a pretty good spot here for the Jets.
Yeah, this is a tale of 2 Robs for this game. My best ball Brees Hall shares are screaming with excitement because I'm so happy that he's playing against the Broncos. And I think, to your point, they're going to let him loose a little bit more than they have, and we're going to see a bunch of Brees Hall. The DFS Rob is really sad because I was like, this morning looking at it, I was like, please, let's just have this Brees Hall thing go under the radar. Nobody say anything. And then I go on X today, and every tweet on X I see is Brees Hall is going to have a breakout game against the Denver Broncos. And I'm just like, God, please make it stop. So Brees Hall is going to end up getting owned at an absurdly high number for this week. It's going to be bonkers, like in terms of what he should be owned.
Right.
And I'm going to end up like debating on if I should play him or fade him. And I will ultimately make the wrong call, whichever way that is. And it's just going to be sad.
Yeah. If obviously we're mostly talking, best ball and just general season and team stuff. But I will say, come check out Roto-Grinders on Sunday mornings. I do a Sunday morning DFS show on Roto-Grinders and a Sunday evening, afternoon, whatever you want to call it, show on Sirius XM So if you have a Sirius XM subscription, you come listen to me for 3 goddamn hours every Sunday. I'm sure that's what people want, just 3 more hours of me talking football in their ears. But every Sunday, come hang out, talking DFS and everything. But from a Breece Hall Jets perspective, they're in the best spot. They're certainly not the best offense, but they're probably in the best spot of the entire slate on Sunday. And so if whichever way people are going to go, because they're going to go to the Jet, everybody sees it, right? We're in it 2023. It's not like people are avoiding these kinds of spots. If people are going to go to Breece, I'll just play Zach Wilson and Garrett Wilson or Tyler Conklin or whatever. If people are going to go to Zach Wilson and Garrett Wilson, I'm going to go to Breece. And I'll live with that. I'll totally live with those results because I do really like the Jets this week. Famous last words, just like Rob back in the Bengals, I'm back in the Jets. What could go
wrong? But yeah, I am excited in terms of best ball for the Breece Hall thing. I think this is the week, and I'm not going to go poor this week as we get through this list.
Yes,
I see that I'm not going to go poor. I'm actually going to make money this week.
We got the winner here.
Because how do I not play Patrick Mahomes this week? Is the question.
There's salary cap games, but from a best ball perspective, your Chiefs shares.
Yeah.
Oh baby. Yeah. And I imagine you have some Mahomes with Jefferson.
Buddy, do I?
We talked last night about the Chiefs wide receivers. Of course, Travis Kelce looks good, and talk about certainly not make or break for Travis Kelce, but your fantasy teams that drafted Travis Kelce, you're probably feeling like it's make or break as you watch Jefferson go for 30 every week and Tyreek have a bunch of big games and Diggs and AJ Brown and CMC. You're watching all these first round picks go crazy and you're sitting there with Travis Kelce. He's fine for a tight end, of course, but he's not exactly setting the world on fire. But this is a great one for him, for Patrick Mahomes. You mentioned we talked about the Chiefs wide receivers last night. I think any of them, of course, could pop off in this game because it's such a good matchup. But I'm most excited to see if Rashee Rice's role continues to grow. Looks good in their week 4 game. And I think he's kind of the guy I'm most intrigued by in the Chiefs group. MVS can always catch a long one or whatever. But in terms of role growth and can one of these guys step forward, I really, really am interested to see Rice.
And we also get the MVS game this week for sure. Can't fail. Has to be the MVS week where he hits the long one down the sideline and actually catches it and scores. We get that once or twice a year. It's got to be this one against the Vikings.
He did it 2 weeks ago and it got called back on a BS penalty.
Yeah.
Against the Bears.
That was sad. And I do have 5 Mahomes, Justin Jefferson teams in Best Ball Mania. So we are looking very much forward to this. I will have a DFS lineup that is revolved around this game. How can you not? How could I not? And I'm at a 19% advance rate in Best Ball Mania going into this coming week. I am going to guess that it is
higher
than that once we come out of week 5. So that is something I would wager on, that my best ball shares are going to go up in week 5.
I'm going to war with Sam Howell and the fighting Sammy Commanders on Thursday, and Rob's going to war with Patrick Mahomes against one of the worst defenses in the NFL on Sunday. Let's see who comes out on top of this one. But seriously, though, those are some of the great spots to have, kind of going back to the bye week discussion and the sometimes it's a long. This is the regular season best ball with from the tournament perspective, non-drafters, right? The tournament formats, the regular season is a marathon, and that's part 1 of 4. You know what I mean? We got to make it through 3 more weeks of the playoffs. We are only 4 weeks through part 1. We'll call it 30% through part 1 of this whole first act, right? And so these kinds of games can be so impactful because you can, like you said, we can make up so much ground, right? Your Mahomes teams, you get that long MVS touchdown. You have them on Jefferson teams. Maybe that team's not advancing, right? Mahomes, Jefferson, MVS, Rice, whatever. It's not advancing. Boom. You outscore the first place team by 90 points in this week. That stuff happens, especially when we get to the bye week. So really excited for that one. One other thing I did just want to point out, we talked last night, Jordan Addison bageled a total air ball, 1 target last week. And he's just been kind of solely a downfield guy, which feels okay in this game, but also feels okay for tournaments. but like not DFS tournaments, like best ball tournaments, feels okay. Like you're going to get some spike weeks, but he's not earning any volume at all. So I wouldn't be counting on him for, a bunch of usable games. Only other thing, Cam Akers was obviously active last week. But Alexander Mattison still played 70% of the snaps, had 17 carries for 95 yards, had basically 100 total yards, and actually looked pretty good. So maybe the old Akers signing lit a fire underneath Alexander Mattison. And I do still think he'll be, 60 to 70% of the backfield is going to be Mattison, unless Akers somehow really just kind of outperforms him over the course of the next month. So still feeling okay about Mattison shares.
He looked better last week too, and maybe he needed a fire lit under his ass with the Cam Akers coming in. But from the runs I saw him make, even like some of his runs that he was getting 5 to 7 yards, they just looked like better runs than he's been producing for the last couple weeks. So I kind of like Mattison as well as sort of like a sneaky best ball. He's going to be that 5th, 6th, 7th rounder where he doesn't do anything overly explosive, but he trudges along. And maybe when you're in a playoff game and you have a Breece Hall who doesn't get the volume you want him to get, Mattison comes in and gets you the 7 to 12 points that you needed to advance or something like that.
100%. If he just stays healthy, he's going to be useful for you all year. He's not going to be the reason you win your league or win a best ball tournament, but he's going to be helpful for sure. Like he's been helpful so far. I'm in second in the high roller on drafters. He's my RB1. He's not setting the world on fire, but I me, I draft mostly 0 RB ish, and I don't have Kyron on that team, but I'm just like bouncing around Madison, B-Rob, Khalil Herbert. I do have A-Chain, but it's like I'm just bouncing around these running backs, and he's helping me because he's scoring double digits every single week, generally speaking. Another fun game, but a little bit, honestly, worried that the defenses are really, really good here, but the offenses are pretty good too. Cowboys, 49ers, Sunday Night Football. Mostly just excited to watch this one. I saw something on Twitter that I do find interesting. I believe Dak has the second lowest ADOT amongst all quarterbacks in the NFL so far. Only second to Bryce Young is the only one that's worse. So please just bring us Andy Dalton already so we can get some down the field passes. But I think part of that is the Cowboys defense, which again, we talked about last night, that we haven't really seen what the Cowboys have because their defense scores two touchdowns seemingly every week. I don't think their defense is going to score 2 touchdowns in this one against Purdy and Shanahan and co. But I'll be interested to see if they, if that's a McCarthy thing, right? Because what's his name? Former Kellen Moore has gone to Los Angeles. And so we'll see if that's a symptom or a bug of Mike McCarthy taking over. And on the 49ers side, can they be the ones that crack the second team? I guess Arizona kind of cracked it, but can they be the ones that crack the code of the Cowboys defense? They're pretty matchup proof, the 49ers, but I'm really interested to see like just how matchup proof they are in a matchup like this with the Cowboys.
Yeah, I'm super excited they're not on the main slate for multiple reasons. I don't want to try to figure this game out on a week basis, but for season long and just being able to watch it like in a window where it's just the one game on to see what we got from both of these teams, to see what the 49ers offense can do against this Cowboys team is going to be intriguing. I know they don't play again in the regular season, but this is a potential rematch in the playoffs right here, and it's going to be a fun game. I think it might not be fun for best ball, though, to all the points you made. You might get 1 or 2 guys that do something that's usable, but I think there's a potential this is the worst CMC game of the year, right? Against the Cowboys here. It's potential Ayuk does nothing. There's potential Kittle does nothing. There's potential all of them do nothing, and vice versa too. If Pollard's already struggling in terms of like touchdowns and stuff like that, I think he's going to be fine, but this game might scare some people if he doesn't have, some sort of decent game, which I'm fine with personally. I think you just got to get through this week, let the Cowboys get to the next week, and then we start seeing the Pollard thing. But this game might not be great for best ball.
Yep. I think Pollard's going to start to probably fly a little bit he probably is already flying under the radar. CMC is going so nuts. And then he's, but the Pollard usage is everything we want. We've talked about this pretty much every week. He hasn't popped off yet. And maybe he just won't. Maybe the Cowboys defense is, or the Cowboys offense is just maybe not that high of upside. So the volume is great, but I still believe the talent is there. I still believe the big play upside is there. He's getting goal line work. He's getting a bunch of targets. I'm not worried about Tony Pollard, but I am not like expecting a big game necessarily this week also. So it's more of a projecting forward. He's fine. You don't be worried about your Tony Pollard shares, especially because they're probably not doing that great. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like your put Tony Pollard teams, you can have good Tony Pollard teams, of course, but he's not really like doing a ton to help those teams in the second round or at the 1-2 turn or wherever you took them. But better days are ahead for Tony Pollard. One guy I did want to mention in this one that has stood out to me the last 2 weeks is Michael Gallup. So I think everybody made this sweeping assumption that when they signed Brandon Cooks, that he was going to be like the audit where we got to pencil Brandon Cooks. Everybody, fantasy footballers fucking love Brandon Cooks. I don't know what it is about Brandon Cooks, right? Last year with the Texans, he's like a 5th round pick. And this year we put him in the 7th, 8th round and assume he's the wide receiver 2. He's not the wide receiver 2. Michael Gallup is back and he's the wide receiver 2. 7 targets, 6 catches, 92 yards. 2 weeks ago against Arizona, a little bit of the fact that they were losing. But still, that's a strong game against an absolute curb stomping of the Patriots that they had. 6 targets, 5 catches, 60 yards. He looks good. He's passing the eye test, kind of back to old school Gallup, a couple years removed from the ACL tear that he suffered in the goddamn fantasy championships when on Pete and I's Best Ball Mania team that was making a run up. He caught a touchdown at the end of the first half and tore his ACL on the touchdown catch. It would have been nice if he would have not got hurt on that one, but he's looking back to me. And so I actually have a little bit of Gallup. I'm overweight, not like a ton, but I checked that today. I'm overweight Gallup and I'm feeling optimistic about him moving forward, like similar to Pollard. It hasn't all come together in big fantasy scores yet, but everything's trending in the right direction for Michael Gallup.
Gallup was a blind spot for me this year, and I don't remember where he was going. That's how much of a blind spot he was for me. But I wasn't drafting Brandon Cooks either, so I guess it's like addition by subtraction or whatever you want to say in terms of that. But Michael Gallup was probably an easy pick. He was going past Tyler Boyd and stuff. So
yes.
So yeah,
he was also weird, different sites. He had a very like wide range of ADP depending upon the sites. Like you said, I can't remember it exact, but like anywhere from like 125 to like almost 150 on. I don't remember if that was DraftKings or Drafters. He went like almost 150. So yeah, just a guy the market couldn't figure out really, and I would just feel good about him. Last game. Real doozy. Jordan Love against who knows, Aiden O'Connell, Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy G still in the concussion protocol. And the least surprising thing ever, I'm not trying to make light of head injuries, but if Jimmy Garoppolo, like anybody getting a head injury, Jimmy Garoppolo is the most likely candidate for it to linger on longer than the average concussion protocol. We'll see if Jimmy comes back. I think Aiden O'Connell, after a really shaky first quarter and a half, 2 quarters against the Chargers, started to feel like get settled in a little bit, started feeding Devontae. The offense, they nearly came back and won that game. They had a truly cowardly punt that if they had not punted, maybe who knows, maybe they would have come back. But lose by 7 to the Chargers, and now they get Jordan Love and the Packers coming in as they're getting to full strength. So I know that they're road favorites here, but I think they should be in the Packers. I think they're just a much better team than the Raiders, even whether it's Jimmy G or Aiden O'Connell or whatever. I don't think the Raiders are very good. I saw you tweet something today, so I'll let you kind of take the mic on dunking on the Raiders. But I do like a great spot for all the Packers, except AJ Dillon, because there is no such thing as a good spot for AJ Dillon, Aaron Jones, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Dobbs. I like all those guys.
Well, this is going to be the lure you in week for AJ Dillon. This will be the week that AJ Dillon has 60 yards, 2 touchdowns, and you think like, oh, AJ Dillon's right. So like, if you want to make money this week, you play the 2-game slate for the Sunday night, Monday night, find a decent tournament there. Everyone's going to want to play the other 3 backs. So they're, right. You play AJ Dillon. He scores 2 touchdowns.
Other 4 backs. I bet people play Aaron Jones before AJ Dillon.
That's true too. So the other 4 backs, AJ Dillon gets all the short yardage work, actually scores like 2 short touchdowns, gets 50 yards a catch, right? He has like a 15, 16 point game, something like that, maybe an 18-point game. And you're like, oh, maybe my best ball shares were good. I'm sorry I talked you into AJ Dillon, by the way. It seemed good at the time.
I'm totally fine with that process. And we even got the contingent play right away. And I needed it, right? I draft so many 0 running back teams. You're like, oh my God. We got the AJ Dillon and we got the Josh Kelly. And I was just like, you get that and you got Kyron, you got A-Chain. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to win all the money. And my team suck because all those guys, besides obviously Kyron and A-Chain, they all got the opportunity and sucked so bad that they couldn't even score any fantasy points. But AJ Dillon, but I don't mean that like he's going to end up being a great pick, but I also do think better days are ahead for AJ Dillon. I think that the offense needs Aaron Jones, the offense needs Christian Watson, and now he's never going to get probably as much volume as he got without Aaron Jones, but they also didn't have Watson in those games. And I think that that's the thing about the volume versus efficiency that we argue about like every freaking summer is everybody's, loading up on the Najee Harrises because they project for more volume, and give us the Breece Halls because they project for more efficiency. And like AJ Dillon proved that like the volume, when you're bad and you're on a bad offense, it doesn't necessarily matter. Whereas if this offense can get better, when you add your 2 best players back, and you're certainly your 2 most explosive players, maybe the offense becomes efficient, and now you can Dillon will get some touchdowns. He'll get some of those goal line touchdowns and score some fantasy points. So who knows? We'll see. But I'm not writing it off, but I am pounding the table and saying he's not very good at football. I'm willing to say that, but I'm not willing to say he won't ever be useful for fantasy. That is for sure.
I agree. And then on the Raiders side, dude, this is the prophecy. I'm almost sick of talking about it. I've gone over this prophecy thing for the Raiders since the beginning of the summer. The prophecy, I'll lay it out one more time, was always the Raiders are going to be a very, very bad football team, right? They're going to start off slow. Jimmy G sucks. We're going to see the regression in his turnover thing where he got so lucky with the 49ers. We're already seeing that. He's already gotten banged up. He's already missed the game. Devontae was going to start chirping before the trade deadline. Now we have Devontae chirping. He chirped again today. I mean, it wasn't as bad as the other day, but he still said a little something. Josh Jacobs is chirping now. So the whole team is starting to do this. Who knows what's being said behind the scenes? Because if something's being said in front of a camera, it's 10 times worse behind the camera. Always. Take that to the bank, right? Yes. So this is the second part of the prophecy. The third part is we're going to be talking about Devontae Adams at the trade deadline. Until the trade deadline passes, he's not going to get traded. So he's going to remain on the Raiders. And by week 13 or 14 or something like that, Adams is going to go down with a phantom injury, sort of like the Derek Carr thing almost. They're going to sit him home so that they can protect him for whatever the hell they're going to do with him in the offseason. And he's not going to be on the field anymore. And the Raiders are going to be 2-15 at the end of the year or something like that. This is all coming to fruition. You guys don't have to believe me. I knew that Devontae Adams was going to start out fine. I never thought Devontae Adams was going to come out and start getting 2 catches for 20 yards and no touchdowns. Never what I thought was going to happen with Devontae Adams in the beginning of the year. This is the epitome of look at the organization. What are they telling you? The Raiders told you they were going to be dysfunctional the entire offseason. I mean, we don't even have to get into the Chandler Jones stuff that's going on as well.
Yeah, let's not. Probably not gonna.
Right,
we'll be here for a long time. We start getting into all that too.
But just on the offensive side of the board, they are terrible. I might have missed on the Jacoby Myers thing because they're not going to sit Jacoby Myers ever. That might have been a mistake on my part. His volume might just be through the roof all the way through the season because they're going to have nobody else. I think Devontae still gets sat. There is a chance if they trade anyone, I think it is going to be Jacobs. I think that someone would have to go down.
I just don't know who's trading for him.
That's the point.
Just don't know
who's trading for him. It's why Leonard Fournette's sitting at home still, right? So I just think that everything I thought with the Raiders for the most part is coming true. You're seeing it happen. And this is the one hill that I'm dying on until it doesn't happen for the rest of the season because I like Devontae Adams. I think Devontae Adams is the best receiver in the league. I've never said to the contrary on any of that. I just hate the situation that he's in. He hates the situation that he's in. And I think it's all going to all come to a boil.
Yep, we talked about it a lot over the summer. I won't rehash everything that you said because neither you or I have basically any Devontae Adams, and that was met with a lot of ridicule. And I will continue to stand by that process, and whether it goes right or wrong, honestly, that's right. Like I have lots of bad players that I took big stands on, or players who were awesome that I took stands against, and process over results. And I think that the pushback that you'll hear week to week is the perfect example of the fact that people are just results over process, right? So for 2 weeks, nobody said shit about the fact that we were dunking on the Raiders and low on Devontae Adams, right? And then week 3, you get the Devontae game, the 40.
The tweet started. The tweet started week 3, and I'm just like,
and people are in this, and look, it's fine. It's all fun and games. I'm totally cool with the shit talking, and I'm totally. You want to dunk on Rashad Penny? Please. He's dead in a grave over here next to me. We can pour some dirt on him together if you would like. I'll own that. It's fun. It's all fun and games, and so I support it. However, it's just funny. Like the people come out like, oh look, see. Told you, you idiots. We told you, you should have drafted Devontae. Then guess what? Another bad game this week, and the Raiders lose again, and all these things that you're mentioned that were the reasons that we were low on him had nothing to do with Devontae. Like you said, literally could have nothing less to. I agree with you. I also think he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. He's fucking unbelievable. I played him in DFS twice. I played the dude in DFS twice. So I clearly like him when he's out there and playing right now, but it's macro level issues. It's, he's an early round pick or whatever. I did come around a smidge to Jacoby Myers, not a lot, but a little bit to Jacoby Myers. And I have decent Michael Mayer bags. And so that was kind of my hedge against all of this stuff. And it's just funny. It's just very funny, right? The the roller coaster of the NFL season, takes no prisoners. We all fall into little things. I remember I was thinking about it earlier today, looking through some teams, of being excited for having Kendrick Bourne on my teams after week 1. Like, oh, good job me getting on some Kendrick Bourne. And it's like, I think he has less fantasy points in the last 3 weeks than he had in week 1. And that's just how it goes. The roller coaster happens. We all have to try to process it as we go. But we're always trying, and specifically trying to do these shows to blend what we're seeing, what's happening, the things we're learning, with marrying it up to our process. What was the process? When did we maybe have bad process? When did we have good process, but maybe ran bad, right? And just like figuring all that out. That's why I enjoy doing these shows. And hopefully the people enjoy listening to it, because that's what we're like in real time, trying to process all that work, all that thought, all that time we spent over the summer. You can't just like throw it out because Devontae Adams had a 140-point game, right? Or you can't just throw it out because J.K. Dobbins got hurt. You can't just how do we process all of that and learn along the way, as opposed to getting to January, March, June, and like starting over and being like, what happened last year? Like soaking all this up along the way is really helpful and really important. So anything else before we start to get out of here?
Just to close out the Devontae Adams thing, because people are hearing what they want to hear again with that stuff. I remember one specific show where we said we will play him a few weeks this year in DFS. We mentioned that specifically, but that's not what people hear. People hear, don't draft Devontae Adams. So it's funny.
Yeah. Why do you hate Devontae Adams? Why do you hate Devontae Adams? Like I actually love him. That's actually part of it. I love him so much that I know that he's not going to be down to play for this 1-win Jimmy Garoppolo, Josh McDaniels circus that they have out there in Vegas. No pun intended. But we have to get out of here. Rob has got to go do some more fun things that are totally very similar to best ball conversations. So go check out Hometown Ghost Stories here later tonight, and we will be back. I mentioned this, I think yesterday or recently. We got a couple different NBA best ball videos. The NBA best ball rankings are up on the site already. You can find those if you're a subscriber. And we got a couple. I'm going to do some pre-recorded draft videos on both DraftKings and and Drafters. And then just like some strategy videos. And we got in-season NFL, in particular, Best Ball Resurrection on Underdog. And they have in-season tournaments also on DraftKings and Drafters. Be on the lookout for all of that. We are in big time grind mode, and then sort of teaser, whatever. We're already working on our NFL playoff best ball content and everything that we're going to be releasing around that. So I think, yes, it is absolutely God's game. And I'm already excited. We're wishing my life away here, but I'm very excited for playoff best ball. And I think you're going to enjoy what we got coming there. So go check out Hometown Ghost Stories. We'll be back. I don't know yet exactly when this week, but we're going to have more content coming for you this week. Maybe a couple drafts. And go ahead.
Sorry, you can catch me on the Swolecast tomorrow too. I'll be on the Swolecast. So if you ever heard of that show, I'll be on that one.
Who the hell has heard of the Swolecast? We just don't know. We just don't know about the Swolecast. For next time, for me and Rob, for all the dogs, for all you sickos, we appreciate you joining us. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.